Are there particular deaths that have stumped experts for decades? What would you do if you heard a sleeping loved one scream in the middle of the night? Is it possible for humans to suddenly burst into flames? Today, we test the believability of the death of Madge Knight and spontaneous human combustion.
Welcome to Believing the Bizarre,
where we dive into the unknown and the unusual
and tell you whether or not we find it believable.
That is right. It's another Tuesday. I hope for all of y'all that celebrate Thanksgiving, I hope you had a great Thanksgiving.
If you're
Canadian?
If you're Canadian, yours is last month.
Oh, yeah, you didn't get a shout out. That's Halloween time.
And Thanksgiving time for them. But ours is tomorrow.
In real life. As of the recording of this, it is tomorrow. That is correct.
And my birthday was the day before this.
Oh, happy birthday, Charlie.
Yeah.
I'll post something, I'm sure, unless I forget.
And I'm going to go to New York this weekend.
Very busy. Oh, yeah, you're going to go see Sweeney Todd.
I am going to go Sweeney Todd, see it. I'm going to see it on Broadway.
What if they just, the guy who plays Sweeney hurts his ankle, and they're like, isn't there, I know that's why they have understudies. Yeah, they're like, isn't there anyone in the crowd that could just do it? And you just stand up. You give your wife a little pamphlet, you get in there, and you're like, it's my calling.
It's my time. It wouldn't be my time. I don't know the words.
So today's episode is a little bit of a mixed bag because it started with this death and then it kind of transitioned into spontaneous human combustion, which I might call SHC.
SHC.
Which does not roll off the tongue.
No, it doesn't really.
It's a lot, shorter than saying spontaneous human combustion, but it's kind of fun saying that.
Yeah, but it's kind of like in Scientology where they shorten names, like the founder.
Where they shorten couch to trampoline.
Yeah. That's just Tom Cruise.
Okay. Ironically, I wanted to do this episode a long time ago, for 2020.
I remember you talked about
2020,
this.
I think someone in 2020 was like, you should do this. It's like, that'd be fun. And then it's just been on the shelf getting dusty.
I remember you talked about this one, and I was like, oh, that's interesting. He's pulling out right now.
Yep. But it's time. So let's get into the episode. So this episode is a story and a death that leads into spontaneous human combustion,
as a whole.
Kind of.
Right?
Yeah. This is a story that is then going to broaden into a theory with cases and stuff. It'll be fun.
Neato.
But the first part, we're focusing on the mysterious death, spoiler alert, of Madge Knight.
Ooh.
So this takes place in 1943. And there's going to be a lot of names in here. I mean, not really. It's actually a lot of very bland names, like Mr. and Mrs., husband and wife.
Okay.
But, I'm going to do my best to clarify and make sure we're all on the same page.
Sure.
So 1943, and it involves a woman, Madge Knight, and it takes place in West Sussex, England.
West Sussex. I'm not going to pretend I know where that is. Somewhere in England.
Somewhere in England. Madge, she's living a normal 40s life. And she's living with her husband, who is a retired architect. But here's where it's a little unusual. They're also living with Madge's sister and Madge's sister's husband, who are very formally known as Mr. and Mrs. Moore.
Well, that's interesting.
Yeah. They had their own room.
I should hope so.
And it says 1943, but it's feeling a little bit like 2023. Might be heading back to these situations with inflation.
Yeah.
Am I sleeping in the studio here? But anyway, so it's November of 1943. Madge's husband took a trip to London with Madge's sister, which is a little, I'm sure it was just a business trip.
I'm sure it was
just business.
That's odd. What about Mr. Moore?
Well, I think he probably was back at the house with Madge.
So it feels like they're swinging a little bit.
I don't know.
Whatever.
But when they got back, Madge and her husband got into a huge argument.
Yeah.
Which, according to Mr. and Mrs. Moore, was kind of rare for them. But they suspected that it was rooted in jealousy about the trip.
Yeah. Yeah, I'd be pretty mad too. And Mr. Moore's just like, I don't know, it was a good time.
It was,
I played Call of Duty the whole time. So
I was playing Godfish. It was fun. So they come back. There's a little bit of an argument. Madge had reportedly been drinking heavily that night that they returned.
in the 40s. So
In the 40s.
you know,
Yeah, and it got so bad. Well, we'll learn about her drinking. It got so bad that Mr. and Mrs. Moore left the home for a little while due to how intense the argument was and how uncomfortable they felt. Which they're living in their siblings' house, so it's
Yeah.
like, did they just go stand in the front yard?
I don't know.
For like an
maybe they
hour.
went to the bar or whatever. You know,
Like, oh, we already drank here. It's like the Jim Gaffigan. It's like, let's get let's
eat
drink here, and then we'll go get a drink.
Yeah, that's about Disney World, and I feel attacked.
I think that's every. Let's get some to eat, and then we'll get some to eat.
Yeah, but also
That's true. That is about Disney World. But anyway, so Mr. and Mrs. Moore ended up coming back inside around 10 p.m. and things seemed to settle down a little bit. They discovered that Madge was sitting alone in their living room, still drinking.
yikes.
They asked about her husband, and she said that he already went to bed.
She said she went to bed. That's what she said.
Like, don't go to sleep angry except for right now and get the out of my face. I'm
Yeah.
like, okay. To the Moores, Madge appeared very calm, thoughtful, and surprisingly lucid despite how much alcohol she consumed.
Ooh.
But also, they noted that it was very common for Madge to have about 5 or 6 whiskeys every evening before bed.
Jesus H. Christ. I was going to ask if she's drinking, like what she's drinking. I was going to say gin just because we're in England,
Yeah,
but whiskey seems to be her drink.
yeah.
Damn.
So other than the huge fight, it was a pretty typical evening. But eventually, the drink stopped flowing and everyone went to sleep.
Can I ask you really quick, like,
Me? Or,
yeah, you. When you get to the 5th whiskey, do you she thinks, let's have one more.
Well, at that point, why not?
I
What
guess.
if you're at 5? What's 6?
That's a good point.
That's kind of like my sports betting mindset. And it's not very good.
Also unhealthy.
With the most whiskey I've ever had was out of a plastic bottle, and that didn't end well.
No.
Shout out Dan. Anyway, so later that night, everyone went to sleep, and it isn't obviously stated, but for this story to work, I have to assume that Madge and her husband do not sleep in the same room. They have different rooms, different beds. Like
They're not in the same area.
or they have a separate room, a guest room, and they were angry, so they were like, I'm not gonna sleep with you. I'm gonna sleep in the guest room.
That could be it too.
It wasn't stated. I know a long time ago it wasn't uncommon for couples to have their own beds, but typically in the same room. But if
There's an episode of How I Met Your Mother where Marshall and Lily, they experiment with having their own bed in the same room.
yeah,
So like 2 beds in the same room, 2 smaller beds. But eventually they push them together.
yeah. And then you just have a weird crease in the middle.
Terrible.
And the Moores can't judge because they're living.
Yeah.
Oh, you think they're paying rent? They're probably buying whiskey. They're like, let's just keep her drunk so she never asks about where the rent is.
To buy a bottle of whiskey every day is pretty bad.
So they're sleeping. They're in different rooms. And later that night, around 3:30 a.m., halfway through the witching hour, everyone was abruptly awoken by the sounds of shrieking coming from Madge's room. The Moores ran in to find out what happened. Her husband did not. He slept through the entire thing. So when the Moores ran in her room, they found that she was lying completely naked, other than her blanket. She only had her blanket on. And she was writhing and groaning in pain. And they could see that it looked like the skin on her back had been peeled away.
Oh, that's terrible. It's so graphic. That's terrible.
I feel like that would be one of those situations where, like, I'm a stomach sleeper, but the minute you lose the skin on your back, you get the urge just to lay on your back. Like, I kind of really want to lay on my back now. Have you had food poisoning? Because you can't lay on your sides when you have food poisoning because your stomach.
No, I didn't know that.
Well, it's because your stomach, you like the sensitivity. So
I've never really had it.
I had it one time, and I've never wanted to lay on my side more than when I had it because you can't do it. We want what we can't have, and in her case, she probably wants back skin, but she doesn't have it.
Yikes!
Madge's sister immediately attended to her and tried to figure out what happened.
And of course, someone called the police.
No.
Oh.
No. She was just like, oh, this looks pretty bad, and Mr. Moore was like, I'm too tired for this shit. I'm going back to bed.
She was like, let me pour some hydrogen peroxide on it.
Let me pour the whole thing. Get the dump truck of hydrogen peroxide.
No, you got to go to the doctor. in that situation, I think, right?
Well, eventually, Madge calmed down
Okay.
despite her injury, and her sister was like, well, you better get some shut-eye.
Jeez.
And they left her alone, and she somehow went back to
She's
sleep.
pretty sleepy, but
Just got every Band-Aid that they could find, just taped it to her. But if you think it's weird that they didn't get any medical help,
I do.
you're correct. It is weird. But for whatever reason, they didn't feel the urgency, despite, she was literally
Even the next
losing
day.
skin and in a great amount of pain.
Yeah. And the next day, she's just like, it's fine.
I also want to reiterate that her husband didn't wake up. He didn't check on her. It was just
Maybe he was on something. Maybe he was on a pill or something.
He could have been. Or he just put his AirPods in, put
Maybe
noise
he was
cancellation
on 7
on.
whiskeys.
He was on 7. That was part of the argument. She's like, well, I'm going to do 6. He's like, I'm going to do 7.
Yeah, exactly.
So the following morning, Mr. Knight woke up around 8 a.m. and discovered what happened. And then he called a doctor.
Good.
Interestingly, though, the doctor didn't come until around 11. So this is like 3 hours. But also,
It's a house call, though.
Yeah, not a bad gig.
Yeah. He had to stop and get a bagel.
Is there? There is. I'm sure there is. I haven't looked into it. A service where a veterinarian comes to your house seems like the dopest thing in the world.
My parents-in-laws have had used that situation.
Well, where they're at, they probably came by horse and buggy. But just like putting your animal in the carrier is a nightmare.
Yeah.
They really should. There should be a company that advertises that more, in my opinion. And maybe we'll create that company.
I don't
Charlie.
typically crate my animal. I take him to the vet
You just put them in your car.
Well,
you got dogs.
Dogs. They're big
What
dogs.
about Artemis?
She doesn't often go to the vet, and when she does, she tries to assassinate the veterinarian.
We just hope for the best.
Kind of.
Anyways, doctor comes around 11. After being examined by the doctor, he determined that it wasn't a cut or anything like that. Instead, her back had been severely burned.
Oh.
It was a burn. And he gave her some morphine.
Okay, good.
Everyone in the house
Like a drip or just like a pill? Sorry.
I don't know.
Okay.
It just that's where it ends. Probably, I don't know. Everyone acknowledged, though, that there was no smell of burnt skin. There was no smell of anything burning.
Thank God.
Nothing in the room was hot. So,
Did they use that air?
so run with me here. There was no source of fire. Nothing created an intense enough flame to give her such a burn. Her bedclothes, which she wasn't really wearing, were not burned. Her blanket wasn't burned. The bed wasn't burned. So she, with a blanket on, naked, got a burn on her back that literally disintegrated part of her skin, and nothing else in the room was hot.
I have an idea.
Yeah, let's hear it. I don't have an answer either, by the way.
What if it's not a fire burn? What if it's a chemical burn?
Yeah.
What if the husband's like, I got some stuff, it's going to f her up. And during the night, just pours on her back and runs out and goes to sleep.
Giggle.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. Do you think he got that bad?
I think it like obviously what this episode's diving into later on. I think that is the only thing that would make sense. Something like a chemical burn makes probably the most amount of sense.
I wonder if that relationship was that damaged.
Well, I think some things that we're about to talk about might make you feel that way.
Okay.
So an investigation in the previous events happened, and there were some discrepancies between the Moore's version of what happened and the husband's. While the Moores, as we heard already in the story, said that the Knights had been arguing intensely, Mr. Knight said that is not true, that he was merely just sitting and listening to his wife, who was upset with him, but he described her more as excited rather than angry, and he claimed that he didn't engage in any yelling, and that she truly was not that angry. According to him, she'd been stressed out doing so much housework all the time, as well as her ailing health, which we didn't really hear about before besides the drinking, and that had nothing to do with the trip to London.
I wonder if that's close to the truth, though, because when the Moore said when they got back that she was kind of chill.
But they left because of the intensity of the fighting. Doesn't say how long. Could have been a 5-minute burst that calmed down.
Yeah, or maybe they just kind of blew it out of proportion.
Or they hit him with the Operation Sandman. He got doused, and that's why he didn't wake up, and maybe the Moors did it. They're like, this is our house.
Oh.
I don't know. I don't have an answer either.
So many angles.
There's no answer. It does seem like there's some foul play, right? It
does.
Because it seems like there was a ball dropped. Like, no one called the doctor that night.
That's so weird.
Did an investigation. The husband slept through it.
Yeah.
When they woke up, there was 3 hours between calling and the doctor coming. And this investigation, the conflicting reports about what happened. Yeah. Man, y'all getting some true crime on this BTV episode.
It's really strange.
Regardless, while this investigation is taking place, Madge is taken to the hospital for treatment, and another doctor came to the conclusion, along with you, Charlie, that the burns had not been caused by a fire, but rather a corrosive substance, such as acid. But they claimed that there was no sign of anything like that in the home. And the medical staff did all they could, but very tragically, Madge would die 4 days later from bacterial toxins in the blood due to her injuries, which is toxemia. It's essentially blood poisoning from toxins based around, like I said, bacterial infections.
I wonder if they would have actually gone to the doctor when it happened, if that would have stopped it.
I don't know. It's like, I don't know. Medicine,
it's hard to speculate that, yeah.
Like, we know the doctor came the next day at like 11 a.m., but we don't know between when the doctor came and he gave her morphine and when she went in, or maybe she never went anywhere. Maybe all the medical treatment was at the house. So she passes, and as if her death wasn't strange enough, the investigation that took place was not thorough. The conflicting reports were never questioned. They never interrogated Mr. Moore and Mrs. Moore, her husband. They didn't really dive into the idea of any foul play. And they kind of were like, that's a shame.
Yeah.
There are some other theories, though, as to what may have happened from other people, not the investigators or the Moores.
Sure.
We're pretty much done with their story. The first theory is poltergeist activity.
What's the idea there?
Paranormal researcher Harry Price discussed this in his book Poltergeist Over England. He thinks that a poltergeist caused the burns and then her subsequent death. That's just his theory.
That's all he says?
He's like, I think this happened.
Okay, no reason, or just...
You can't trust them poltergeists. There's a lot of poltergeists out there in England.
I could back this, and I have a reason why I'd back it.
Let's hear it.
Poltergeists are known for activity to do with fire. There are many reports of activity of people needing fire extinguishers when dealing with poltergeists because little fires pop up. I believe that happened in the Sally house.
Imagine just a little fire popping up on her back.
Yeah, that's terrible.
It's scary.
And then I don't know why he said the poltergeist killed her.
Well, he said just to cause the burns. I think the burns then caused the bacteria. I don't know. Maybe that dirty ass blanket.
I think it's probably the aftercare was not where it needed to be. Because in theory, fire is sterile. So, but I don't know. Was there any other signs of hauntings in the house, or is it just
unless you go by like their moods, the drink? I mean, the drinking. They're probably. I feel like their awareness to tap into the sensitivities of the house were probably muted by the alcohol
suppression.
Yeah, like I'm not saying that that's the case for everyone, and I could be wrong here, but I feel like they might have always been in a state of not being very hyper aware of what's happening.
That's a fair thing to say, I think.
I don't know. It's an interesting theory, though.
Yeah.
And the other theory will be the base of the rest of this episode, which is that maybe she was a victim of spontaneous human combustion.
Or SHC.
SHC. So what is spontaneous human combustion? The theory of SHC is that a person could inexplicably burst into flames without any sort of external flame or source. It would be internal. This theory goes back to the 1600s and was more popularized by Charles Dickens since he used spontaneous human combustion to kill off a character named Crook in his book The Bleak House.
Damn.
Theories against SHC say that, well, we're mostly made up of water.
Yeah.
Our only flammable properties are fat and methane gas, so it's likely that it would not occur. Others say that the body needs to be exposed to flames of incredibly high heat to be reduced to ashes.
It's true.
So how would it be that other objects in a room might not catch fire? Things that touching
high heat,
things touching the person that burned in disintegrated ashes sometimes are not affected.
Mm-hmm.
I have a quote from Scientific America. which I'll be using again later. Actually, let me just do this. Let me do this. We got Scientific America, History.com, all that's interesting, Business Insider, Exemplar, and Future Learn.
Wow.
Shout them out real quick. But here's a quote from Scientific America. Quote, "The human body isn't especially flammable and has high water content. Surely the fire would be doused rather quickly, even if the body did manage to catch fire. That's why it takes flames of around 1600 degrees Fahrenheit over 2 hours or more to cremate human remains. A cigarette tip, in contrast, only burns at about 700 degrees Celsius." Quote. So it's maybe not something likely to happen, but, that's, what we're talking about here.
Billions of people on Earth, and, even if it's 1 in a billion.
All right, so let's get into some cases of spontaneous human combustion. Hey, Bizarros, the holidays are here, and you know what that means.
Shopping, decorating, spending time with family.
Yeah, we do be busy.
Exactly. So it's easy to skip home-cooked meals and opt for faster, less healthy options.
Well, yeah, we have a solution, and it's just as fast, y'all.
We're talking about America's best ready-to-eat meal kits, Factor Meals. They offer chef-prepared, dietitian-approved meals delivered straight to your door.
Skip the extra trip to the grocery store and the chopping, prepping, cleaning up, while getting the same flavor and nutritional quality that you need.
Factor's fresh, never frozen meals are ready in just 2 minutes. So all you have to do is heat and enjoy.
And we've had their meals like the vegan mushroom marsala
and the loaded bacon shredded chicken. It was delicious.
All you have to do is choose your meals and then enjoy. No prep, no mess.
So how can you take advantage of Factor Meals? Head to factormeals.com/bizarre50 and use code bizarre50 to get 50% off.
That's code bizarre50 at factormeals.com/bizarre50 to get 50% off. All right, so I got 5 cases of SHC.
Oh my, 5.
Yeah.
Pretty common.
5 out of a long time. So the first one involves Helen Conway. And here's a quote from the online article on Exemplar. Quote, "In 1964, firefighters and paramedics were confronted by an unimaginable, gruesome scene at the residence of Helen Conway. They entered the bedroom of the Delaware, Pennsylvania home to discover a scorched, upholstered chair under blackened walls in a corner. At the foot of the chair were the recognizable remains of Conway. Her upper body, along with portions of the chair, had been reduced to ashes.
Damn.
However, her legs and the rest of the room were completely unscathed. The fire inspector believed Conway's death was caused by her heavy smoking habit, and it was documented that there were several cigarette burns throughout her house and the bedroom. One of the firefighters had this to say, 'The amazing part of the incident, in my opinion, is the time element.' The firefighter went on to say that the granddaughter made the fire alarm call within 3 minutes of leaving Helen Conway's house. That meant that Mrs. Conway was alive at 8:42 a.m., and the firemen arrived to find her remains at 8:48. So it only took 6 minutes."
Wow.
Unquote.
That's scary how fast that went.
The only thing I can think of is if the daughter, it already happened, and then the daughter was just found her, or the granddaughter, and was just like, "Ugh,
yeah,
I'm a call."
Yeah,
which I hate to put that on the granddaughter, but
it's
otherwise, how could that happen in 6 minutes?
I mean, fire's fast.
No, but the body, remember, takes 2 hours for cremations.
Yeah. Well, they said ashes, but how far in ashes? Was it just gone?
Do you want to see?
Is there a picture?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
All right, so that'll get put up on social media. Charlie, what are your thoughts about that?
I'm flabbergasted. That's incredible. Not in the good kind of way.
6 minutes.
Oh, I don't believe that. That doesn't seem right. That seems wrong. Yeah. I guess the thing that surprises me the most is that it didn't spread farther.
Yeah, it just went out.
Yeah.
I don't know. Well, let's move on to case number 2. On July 2nd, 1951, a landlady was checking in on a resident. She touched the doorknob and realized that it was unusually warm. Immediately, she alerted the police. When the police entered, they discovered 67-year-old Mary Reese burned to death, completely turned to ash with only a single leg remaining. The chair that Mary had been sitting in was also destroyed. They discovered some sleeping pills near her burn marks, and apparently Mary was known as a smoker.
So she was smoking, fell asleep, but even still...
That's one of the theories, is that she took sleeping pills, dozed off, dropped the cigarette, which
feels
just
too convenient.
Ignited everything. Well, it's not like this happens every day, but, it's just this one time,
It couldn't get that hot, though, right? That's the theory, right?
Maybe she also liked bathing with gasoline.
Maybe she's like, let's just wear it as a perfume, this accelerant. Maybe there was other products that were accelerants, like maybe like...
Perfume or...
petroleum jelly. Or,
Do you think that she making a peanut butter and jelly sandwich and got confused?
I don't know. Maybe she had some, not Vicks. What's it called? Vaseline. Some Vaseline.
Why'd she have that, Charlie?
I don't know. Old people have Vaseline. Their skin gets old. I don't know.
They just got thin mints, those little mints in their pocket and Vaseline.
I don't know. Yeah.
Let's move on to case 3. So, an 89-year-old woman in Ireland, Margaret Hogan, was found completely burned to the point of ashes on March 28th, 1970. Strangely, the majority of the surroundings in the home were untouched and were in perfect condition. However, there were 2 things that drew attention. There were plastic flowers on the table in the center of the room that had melted to a liquid, and Margaret's television screen, which was about 12 feet away from where her ashes lie, was also melted.
Man, that's really scary.
Similarly to Mary, both of Margaret's feet and legs below the knee were perfectly fine. So it really is kind of like an upper body core thing.
She's just doing too many crunches.
The core just...
She's doing too many crunches. She's getting too shredded.
This could be like an ad for one of those... I think it's called Burn.
P90X.
It's one of those metabolism pills that you take. I'm not sponsoring it. I'm not promoting it. I just know of it, that, they say you take it to burn fat and pump up your metabolism.
She did burn fat. That's incredible. It's also really scary to me that this is just a thought that I had. Like, it feels supernatural.
Does it?
Yeah. To me, it feels like not a sign of evil, but like evil is there, and like it's condensing all this hate and anger into fire. And that's just a feeling I have.
For whatever reason, the time frame from the first one is what gets me the most. To think that it could actually happen in 6 minutes, it's like, it's scary to think that you could just be living your life. Like, do you feel it coming on? Like, are you overheated? And then, like, imagine you're just sitting there and then all of a sudden, flames.
Yeah, she's doing what I do when I get warm or whatever we're recording, just like
just take shirt off.
The double fan, shirt off.
Yeah, I don't know. And then for it to affect the TV 12 feet away and like a plant, not even a real plant. It's just melted. It's like, I'm out. Peace.
And like, what about the wooden furniture? That was fine though.
Like, just to see it, to visualize it, to see like an upper body just become engulfed in flames, and then it just goes out.
Well, I mean, because of TV, I've seen that.
Hereditary is what I was thinking of.
I was thinking there's a scene in The Boys, season 2, and also there was a real protest. I believe it was India.
Yeah,
where the man did it to himself.
Yes, that wasn't. It was spontaneous.
It was not.
It wasn't.
Yeah,
because
that was an external force accelerant on top of it. It was a protest. He knew what he was going to do, but
that is like tremendous courage.
It's very scary
to have so much belief in your cause and what you're doing to do that is. Case number 4. In 1980, a 73-year-old man named Henry Thomas was. Is that funny? Charlie?
No, it's not funny. Henry Thomas is the name of Henry from last podcast.
Oh, is it?
Henry Thomas Zabrowski.
He was discovered burned to death in his living room in South Wales.
Wales.
Wales got their shout out. That was, I think, from the quiz.
It was.
There is a quiz attached to this, y'all. If you follow us on Instagram, if you follow us on Patreon, there is a quiz attached to this episode. I quizzed Charlie, see how he did on Patreon. Plug done. His entire body was incinerated, although they were able to identify his skull, and a portion of each leg below the knee, again, were unharmed. And in this case, Henry's legs still had part of his trousers and his socks on.
It just stops. It just stops.
It's that waist.
It's done.
And on to our last case number 5.
You know, if you look how bad these are, like these cases that we've talked about so far, was it Maud?
Madge. Yeah.
Madge was very lucky.
That is just like
she did die, but
yeah. Those ones, now, I mean, I think you can make an argument for foul play in potentially all these because we don't know what led up to any of these. These are all aftermaths of finding out.
Yeah.
Where Madge is, you know, we have a little bit of what happened beforehand. But that doesn't mean that there couldn't be foul play. The strange thing is just the legs aspect of it.
Mm-hmm.
Like the legs and the lack of other things.
The surroundings, yeah. That's the weirdest part for me.
And I feel like these people would be able to identify, oh, this was started by gas. Like let's say, you know, let's say you go, somebody wanted somebody dead and they were sitting in a chair and they poured gasoline on them. And let's just say they were not mobile or something, or they gave them a sleeping pill, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Because you can't test for sleeping pills when your upper body is
destroyed.
Gone.
Yeah.
So, you know, maybe they get a sleeping pill and then you just pour gasoline on them. I feel like they'd be able to tell that gasoline was involved or something.
I feel
a fire
like they would
starter.
As well. Yeah.
You buy one of those little campfire starters, and
yes,
those things are a godsend.
They're pretty good. Yeah.
Somebody who didn't do it at Boy Scouts, well, I did Cub Scouts. I did.
Yeah.
Not for long. But, you know, like, I'm not one of those people that I can't rub 2 sticks together and the next thing you know, there's a bonfire.
I can do a fire from flints.
What about 2 sticks that you find in the woods?
No, I can't do that. I cannot do that. I can do a flint though.
What about if you have a little remote control inside your cabin and you just turn it on and then just
I think I could probably finagle that.
And then you pour a little gasoline on it and then
that's right, yeah.
So the final case, this one's a little bit more recent. This takes place in Ireland in 2010. A 76-year-old man, Michael Ferdy, was deemed, quote, spontaneous combusted by the coroner. This is the coroner.
Wow.
The coroner said he was spontaneously combusted. Here's a quote from the doctor, McLaughlin, regarding the death. Quote, "This fire was thoroughly investigated, and I'm left with the conclusion that this fits into the category of spontaneous human combustion, for which there is no adequate explanation."
Wow.
Unquote. And that's the doctor. This isn't like random YouTube
in 2010
talker or like paranormal blogger or us.
Yeah.
Like this is a doctor, which I'm not saying all doctors are inherently true or correct, but you know, this is a coroner and a doctor coming together and being like, it happened.
This guy, he's got some HAC.
It also, and you might have picked up on this, I would assume, it is definitely older folks.
Yes.
Madge, not quite as much, but her story is so different from these.
It is.
Like hers is like an SHC gone wrong, or like it's just different. Like these all, there's a through line for all these 5. Like there's so much like connection.
Yeah.
Like if someone told you, even if it's not spontaneous human combustion, if someone said all 5 of these people died the same exact way, that's kind of easy to believe.
That's true. Yeah.
So those are the cases that we're going to talk about. Now let's get into some of the theories of spontaneous human combustion. So we got some natural explanations, natural theories, and then we have the alternative theories.
Okay. All right.
That's excited. The world that we live in.
Yeah.
We're alt paranormal. Well, no, we're alt normal.
Alt normal.
Yeah. So the first theory is low mobility.
Okay.
And this is the idea that these are older folks that either, can't move well, or maybe they're obese, they bad joints, they just can't. You catch on fire, it's not easy. You just say, this is it. Well, like it's just, which is actually really, really sad.
Yeah.
Like really, really sad to know that's like, it's kind of like no one likes hearing about death. True crime people admit it. Y'all like hearing about death. Maybe you secretly are rooting, but they're unsolved too. But maybe it doesn't matter. Regardless, if you hear like a guy was doing rock climbing and he died, it's kind of like that sucks. But it's like a different feeling when it's like an animal or a child. There's like that innocence to it, like they didn't know better. like when a child dies or like a dog does something and it dies, you're just like, they didn't know any better. Humans, adults, we kind of assume, I mean, there's even that TV show that was around like 1,000 Ways to Die. That was entertainment, right?
Yeah.
But when you think about somebody who's immobile and older, can't move well, low mobility, and they catch on fire, and it's just kind of
It's
like
not
game
fair.
over.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just like it hits that same kind of like innocence, not in the didn't know better, but the helplessness.
Yeah.
Like if you see a kitten on the side of the road, you're like, ugh. Like if I don't do something, it's gonna die, and it's like that way with an older person who can't move, can't get out of a chair by themselves or something like that. And just to know that maybe that could be what happened to these people.
Absolutely.
Because, many of them smoked. This is,
a lot of them were older in the past.
Yeah. And it's just, it sucks. And, I think it has some merit to a certain degree. It still doesn't explain the way the bodies are found.
Right.
Or like the 6-minute mark.
Could be part of it, though.
Could be part of it. Yeah, it could be one factor in it. Another explanation is smoking. Not that they purposefully lit themselves ablaze.
No, but
rather in their, older age. Here's another thing. Let's say they were smoking. Some of them may have died before the quote spontaneous combustion, like
Right.
heart attack,
Yep.
stroke. They die,
smoking.
and then while they're smoking, and then the cigarette drops, falls on
Yep.
them, and they burn. And obviously, it's kind of like the Titanic under, the submarine thing. It's like, well, maybe they die before they realize. So I think if someone's going to die from combustion, spontaneous human combustion, hopefully maybe they did pass before that happened.
That's probably the best case scenario.
So the idea would be that all of them, which, and it's like, well, that's unlikely, but we're also talking about 5 people out of billions. They were smoking, they died from a natural cause, and the cigarette fell, burned them. They can't, when their bodies, like, when they're being investigated, or the doctors, they can't be like, oh, it was a heart attack. There's no heart.
Mm-hmm. You can't place it.
It's, I don't know what they could do with the legs to tell. I don't know what the legs tell you about the body.
I would imagine not
Post-mortem.
much. Yeah.
And the other theory is called the Wick effect, which I'm going to try my best to explain this. It's very interesting.
I've heard this one. I don't remember it, though.
So the idea is that there's a small flame. It's external. It's not, you're not combusting. But a small flame, like let's say a cigarette again, this could be playing off. It could be playing off all of them.
Even a lighter.
Everyone we mentioned was older, in their 60s, 70s, 80s, Somebody's older. They're smoking. They're in a little bit of the flame chars the victim's clothing, splits the skin, and releases the subcutaneous fat. And this fat is absorbed into the clothing, and it acts like a wick. And it makes the victim, so to speak, a candle. So, and whether you're a bigger person, a thinner person, everyone has fat. Everyone has this fat. And essentially, it turns your fat into like the wax of a candle. Because like we said, the humans, we're not naturally combustible. We are full of a lot of water. But we do have enough stored fat and chemicals that if the fire started, it could give it enough energy to continually burn and burn and burn and burn and burn until potentially the body is reduced to ash. That's not a guarantee. Not in 6 minutes. It would be a long process, but
if you did soak the clothes in some kind of fat, which even if it's like human fat, without really noticing,
but just your fat,
it would go up.
I think
quickly.
I think it would still, unless you died from shock. Like I feel like it still follows like every other thing we've laid out. You're older, immobile, potentially die while smoking, have a heart attack. You light your shirt, and then the wick effect takes place. Unless it's just like it happens, you catch fire, and then you just like the smoke, or you die of shock, or it gives you a heart attack. I don't know. But this seems to be like if scientists all got together and we're like, okay, it's not poltergeist. People aren't just randomly combusting. What could it be? The wick effect is kind of what they're buying into.
I can see that. Definitely can see that.
So for the more alternative theories.
Yes, I'm excited for this.
First one is ball lightning.
What?
Some people propose that ball lightning could be the cause, though it's hard to explain how or why. It's a very rare occurrence for someone to see ball lightning. From what I've seen, this is the number I was thinking about earlier. I don't know if you cut that. If you're going to cut it. When we were talking about something being rare, and I was a number came in my head, but it didn't make sense. But here's where it came into play. Only about 5% of the population have ever claimed to see ball lightning. Although I think producer Ben might be one of them.
I was going to say Ben saw one.
Yeah. It's essentially a ball of lightning that can range from the size of a pea to several feet in diameter. And if you touch it, they say it can cause burning, but it could also be harmless.
Okay.
So the idea is that this ball of lightning comes out, smacks you right in the chest, you light up on fire.
In the middle of your living room?
Yep.
All right.
Well, maybe they all had open windows.
Could be.
I don't know. Another theory is called pyrotron.
Wow.
In the 1995 book Ablaze, written by Larry E. Arnold, he proposed that there's a subatomic particle called pyrotron in us, like it's a subatomic particle inside us, and that alcohol and extreme stress can intensify this particle in us and lead to combustion.
I'm assume there's many studies and proofs about this pyrotron. It's been found and
absolutely, it's already being
researched.
taught to our children as we speak.
Yeah, pyrotron sounds like a robot made of fire.
Pyrotron,
roll
attack.
out.
Yeah, and the final theory, which is kind of something we already talked about, poltergeists.
Okay.
In his 1976 book Fire from Heaven, United Kingdom writer Michael Harrison wrote that spontaneous human combustion is connected to poltergeist activity, probably similar to what you're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
He claims, quote, the force which activates the poltergeist originates in and is supplied by a human being. With the concluding summary, he said, spontaneous human combustion, fatal or non-fatal, belongs to the extensive range of poltergeist phenomena.
I could kind of get behind that.
I do have, and so, okay, so here's a little study that was done that we'll discuss very quickly before the discussion. So there's a study, it wasn't conducted by, but it was written in that same source, Scientific American. Here's a quote. Quote, there is a 1998 experiment conducted by Dr. John DeHaan of the California Criminalistic Institute for the BBC TV science program, QED. Yes.
Well, letters.
Dr. Hahn took a dead pig. It was already dead, y'all. It was already donezo.
Mm-hmm.
Wrapped it in a blanket. It was a pig in a blanket.
Pig in a blanket.
And placed it in a furnished room.
I feel like I've heard of this experience before.
And then set it on fire.
Yeah.
Well, set fire to the blanket with nothing but a match and a bit of gasoline. Apparently, pig flesh is the closest to human flesh.
It's very true.
So pigs are frequently used in these sorts of experiments.
It's also used in tattoo practice.
Really?
Pig flesh, yep.
Dead pig?
Pig skin.
There's just one badass pig walking around with a back piece on.
Yeah, people practice on pig skin.
If it didn't hurt the pigs, that'd actually be kind of dope.
It would be very cool.
Like, I'm assuming like the pigs can't consent to it and they wouldn't like
they
it.
Can't.
But imagine you go to a farm and it's just like
tattered up pigs.
Tattered up pigs. What do they got? They got humans on them.
They've got like pigs on motorcycles and stuff.
Yeah, pigs doing the rock on sign. That'd be pretty dope.
Pig pinups.
Anyway, back to the study. It took a while for the pig to catch fire. We already kind of said that the body isn't incredibly flammable, but once it caught, it burned at a high temperature and a low flame, burning for several hours until eventually DeHaan extinguished the fire. So just pulling from that, did catch on fire. It was a low flame, so it's not going to like spread intensely or go incredibly high or anything like that. But it had to end with DeHaan extinguishing it. Now we don't know if it would have eventually just been the same way as with the other people, but he put it out himself.
I'm not gonna lie, it sounds like homie was doing a pig roast, and it sounded like it was going pretty well.
There's like
he's like low and slow, baby.
The interns there and all the people just got like plates and forks. They're like, so is it about done?
been about
what do you
4
guys do?
hours.
Cooking nice crispy bacon. Nice crispy. Put it out, you fools. So the flesh and bones burned part of the body, and it was reduced to ashes. But there was no damage to anywhere else in the room except the TV set melted.
Oh.
And the pig's feet were left behind.
Interesting. That is interesting.
So Dr. Han reported that the heat from the burning body collected at the top of the room, making it hot enough to melt the appliance. But still, legs remained. I mean, it's not a perfect experiment because there is an external flame, but I guess then again, you can't cause it to combust. So they control the elements that they needed to, but it still isn't a perfect representation.
Right.
But that is the episode on Madge Knight's death and spontaneous human combustion. So let's talk about it in the discussion. All right, before we get to the discussion, we like to stop the episode and thank our news patrons who, as of the recording of this episode about SHC, is Fabian, Steph, Myra, Jean-Paul, and Gavin. Fun fact, Gavin was my main character's name in my novel that I was writing for my MFA graduate program.
That is interesting.
Also, this isn't the place to say this, but it just hit me now. So when I was going to Charlottesville earlier this month to go see Dave Matthews Band, we stopped somewhere for my friend Matt to supercharge his car. He's got a Tesla, so he plugs that son of a bitch in, gets it. I actually made it's pretty funny when I brought an external power source for my phone because I didn't know. It's always good to be when you're out and about all day. You want to have that extra charge. Yeah. So I just leaned up in the middle. I was like, "Hey, if we get desperate, you need a charge." But anyway, so we stopped at somewhere and I'm just chilling in the car and I just hear a knock on my window because I was watching an NBA game. I had bets on it or whatever, and it's my buddy because there were two of us. Well, three of us total. And I just see them looking at something outside. And I turn around and I get out the car and I look. And they had thought it was lights. But up on the hill where we were where we were stopped at was a fire, like a forest fire.
Oh, God.
Yeah. I don't think it was spreading much. You know what? Let me just check real quick. So it was Gallagher. I just looked at it. I showed Charlie a picture of it.
Yeah, that's pretty crazy.
I literally just completely forgot about it until right now. Anyone in Gallagher, West Virginia, if you know what I'm talking about, I hope you're okay, and I hope it didn't spread. I hope everything's good, but it was insane. Regardless of that, I was just thinking about that because of combustion. But one thing I want to shout out about our Patreon real quick is the horror movie review, because I love it. I love horror movies. It's why I talk about this stuff. It's why I'm into this stuff. I'm passionate about this stuff. I love horror movies. I think it's been the gateway for a lot of people. I love horror movies. I love watching them. This forces me to watch even more, even though I don't need to be forced. But I like talking about them. But Charlie, what would you like to highlight on that is part of our Patreon content that people can enjoy once they join?
I want to highlight just, even at the lowest level of our Patreon, the $2 tier, we still super appreciate you. And there's some things that you get that are pretty interesting to shout out. Like, you get wallpapers for your phone or tablet or whatever you need. There's also music downloads. If you like our intro music, outro music, you can download those and use them as ringtones, however you need to do that. And also there's shout out. Even anyone that joins Patreon gets a shout out in the episode. As you heard, several people got one before this, but any tier you will get a shout out.
It does mean a lot when we appreciate you. But we'll talk more about that later. Let's get back to the discussion. I think we should do two different ratings for this, and it doesn't really matter until Ben quizzes us on this, and it really fucked us up. But I think I want to do a rating, and we don't have to rate right now. We can still talk about it.
Okay, sure.
But I think I want to do a rating separately. So for Madge Knight, I think the rating unbelievable would be foul play. Mm-hmm. Believable would be that it was unusual, and that could be spontaneous human combustion, poltergeist. Believable is that it is an alternate theory or paranormal. Unbelievable is that somebody did a chemical burn and infected her and she died. And then spontaneous human combustion, obviously, that rating would be unbelievable. It's not real. There's a legitimate reason for what happens, and it's not just people catching fire. And believable is that, something's going down.
Something strange.
But let's talk about Madge real quick.
In the neighborhood.
So I think there's a lot of ways to sum it up as foul play, but what are your thoughts?
I mean, that's my initial leaning, is that there's conflicting stories and there's a lot of anger there, and I don't know why they would do it. Maybe it's a money thing, maybe it's just a vengeance thing, but it seems maybe it's the husband, the brother-in-law, who's in love with her and got to spend that whole weekend with her and nothing happened. Maybe it's that.
She was
maybe
just on her phone the whole time.
Yeah, and he was playing Call of Duty, just mad. Or maybe it's the husband.
They're like, you're being really aggressive, bro. You good?
The husband who was upset and wants to get rid of his wife because he loves his sister-in-law.
I wonder if it could have been someone else that isn't even mentioned in the story, too. I mean, I would assume that more people exist in this world than the four of them. But
yeah.
But also, like, that would make more sense if everyone else seemed to care and all the stories checked out. But we already have so much contradiction and strange behavior with what we already know.
Like, they woke up at 3:30 in the morning. She's screaming. The sister's like, let me look at it. You look fine.
You don't have a back anymore?
Yeah.
Let me get some Band-Aids. And her husband's like,
I'm pretty tired.
Yeah, I was in the middle of a good dream.
Gotta get back to some Z's.
I gotta go back to bed in your house.
And her husband didn't even wake up.
Yeah, it feels more true crime.
It does.
Than anything else. So I'm gonna go unbelievable that it's spontaneous human combustion. I think it is likely a chemical burn, foul play, something was done to her.
I'm gonna go skeptical that it was human combustion.
Do you think it's more so likely to be spontaneous human combustion or poltergeist activity, though? If it like why are you not unbelievable? Do you think it is more the idea that you buy into the spontaneous human combustion, or that you think something paranormal could be in place?
I think maybe it was paranormal too, feeding off that energy.
Yeah,
feeding off that energy. You said that. I mean, you made a good point. It seemed like they were no stranger to drinking, and that might have masked some of the awareness going on, and maybe it did lead to that. That poltergeist doing that.
The poltergeist looking around, it's like, damn, I don't gotta do that much.
Yeah.
This is like level 1 haunting shit. Like, y'all are doing it yourself.
Kinda, yeah.
I was coming for the final blow. All right, so spontaneous human combustion, SHC in itself. So there's trends, putting Madge in her tragic situation aside. Older folks, I mean, they're all older. This is like 65 and above. Living room, sitting down, like no one was running, no one was at the grocery store, no one's moving.
Right.
Or in a position like on the floor where you think maybe they were walking to the kitchen or bathroom.
No one's like mid-stride.
It's like their chair, sitting down, upper body disintegrated.
Probably comfy, yeah.
A lot of them, were known to be smokers, but also it's of the time. I mean, people still smoke now, but
there's one who's known to be using sleeping pills.
Sleeping pills they found the sleeping pills in the room.
Mm-hmm.
So there's trends there, but it still doesn't perfectly explain where these fires are coming from, why it's only attacking, why it's only affecting the top half of their body, and why it's not spreading to other parts of the room.
I think there's a little bit of an answer in that experiment. Heat rises, fire rises. It's not going to go down as easily as it is going to go up.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's a bit of an answer.
Also, like you might think it's, I think the most likely way for this to happen, and maybe this is just me hoping for the best, not that there's anything good about this, but hoping that these people passed before it happened.
Yeah, I think that's a good, good feeling too.
An older person having a heart attack or something. A lot of people smoke, and especially in that time. They're older. They pass. I mean, I'm saying 5 or 6 out of millions. I'm not saying this happens every day.
Yeah.
Pass. cigarette falls, and then the wick effect or something comes into play.
Yeah. It could be several theories stacking together to make it happen.
Also, I don't know your familiarity with the topic, maybe not in depth, but just the knowledge of it existing. But spontaneous human combustion is something I'm actively hoping is not real.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not saying that gives it less credibility to me. There's certainly things in this world that I don't want to be real, but are, and I acknowledge that. But this is something that I don't hope is real,
I understand what you mean.
Like aliens, like there's a part of me that's like, man, it'd be cool if there's something else out there, and I believe that there is. Demons, I don't want that to be true.
Yeah.
Spontaneous human combustion, I don't want that to be true. Like, I don't want it to be. But it's like, if it was, I was thinking about Hereditary again, but you're not a giant eagle or Piggly Wigglies or something.
Yeah.
Wawa, and you don't see somebody just burst into flames. You're like, oh, there's a victim.
Yeah. It's
it
like,
got him.
Yeah, exactly. It's like,
It must be that Pryotron. He must have had a drink and he must be stressed.
Yeah.
Now he's really stressed.
the Pyrotron. No, I also hope it's not real. It's such a scary idea. It's just one day just, and also you don't see this while you're out walking around. Like, these are people who are stagnant and older, and it makes sense for these multiple factors for them to make them combust. Like, they're not moving, they're smoking, they're probably asleep. And I'm not saying that they're wrong or anything to be doing that. It's just, it makes them susceptible for that.
Imagine like Life Alert creating a sprinkler system for living rooms. Like, if you're not being able to be around your elderly loved ones, our sprinkler system kicks on every 20 minutes, regardless of time of day.
Just an older lady who's just like, I'm so wet.
She's just drenched. She's like, at least I'm... And then it just goes to like that shot of like the elderly mom holding the grandma's shoulder. She's like, I'm just happy knowing she's safe. They're like all prudy and stuff. Like,
oh boy.
I go unbelievable. I think it's a very rare thing. I feel like it is many things that have to happen for it to take place and to burn, and it's incredibly rare, and it's not likely, but it doesn't happen all the time, thank goodness. So I'm actually going to go unbelievable on this as well.
I'm going to go with skeptical. Same reason as...
the paranormal aspect.
Yeah.
You believe in more in the poltergeist paranormal aspect than you believe that people are really just on their own combusting.
Absolutely. Yes. I believe there could be maybe a spiritual element to this. But yeah, that's the only reason I'm going skeptical.
With 7 billion people, you think that this would be, if it was something that our bodies could naturally do.
Yeah.
You would think it would be a little more common. Even the fact that it just happens to be older people who aren't moving, like, I just feel like you would see this more if it was something that could naturally occur. And maybe I'm very wrong in that. I could be very, very wrong.
I think you're right, though, because you would see it more. You'd also see it in public. You would see it more places than just people's homes.
Maybe what if they are all the same chair? It's like, this chair's made out of recycled material. Gasoline.
Gasoline cans? Man, no.
I'm just smoking on my gasoline can. You can't tell me what to do.
Saving money.
Betty Sue.
The times I've been to the South, and we've been driving in the South, the amount of people I've seen smoking outside of gas stations.
Oh my goodness.
Scares me to no end.
I'm just using my grandson got me this gas casket used as my ashtray. It's the cutest thing he ever made.
Oh boy.
Yeah, I go unbelievable. You said skeptical? All right. So that is our episode on the mysterious death, which it is mysterious, of Madge Knight and spontaneous human combustion.
Oh boy.
This is 2020, Tyler, finally coming through. It took me a long time to do Hat Man. It took me a long time to do this. I feel like I've cleared it out, though. Like, I need to think back to other things I said I was going to do 3 years ago.
I had birds as drones.
Or are birds real or whatever it is. Yeah, you could do that.
I could still.
Let's just go back to 2020. Let's just start putting out 25-minute episodes again.
No, I don't want to. I like what we're doing now.
I wasn't actually proposing that we do that.
I'm tired. Tomorrow's Turkey Day.
Turkey Day. Thank you everybody so much for listening. If you enjoy this episode, you're listening on Apple. You can't comment on this. Well, you could. And it's a granular. No, granular is not the word I was looking for. It's not granular. It is a podcast wide review that you can say whatever you want, but it is going to be about the podcast, not the episode. But if you're listening on Spotify, you can comment on this specific episode and all of our episodes about what you think, what you like, what you didn't like. And we read them. We appreciate them. We learn from them. Sometimes you got to burn them.
It's true.
No,
Also, if you've caught up on our back catalog and you're not sure to listen to, there's always content on Patreon. I guarantee there's a whole back catalog there. It's pretty lengthy.
Oh, yeah. Just to kind of quickly talk about some things. Quizzes, bizarre news. We talked about the horror movie reviews. We do interviews with people that submit listener submissions to us. Games like Do You Believe the Bizarre? We go into our personal life, what's happening behind the scenes, beyond the bizarre. Social media questions. On Monday, we put out questions. You respond to them. In this segment, we respond to your responses. Google Hangouts, where we literally just talk and shoot the breeze, watch Netflix movies together. Mailbag Q&A segments. Mini Encounter episodes, which we just dropped, all about the Hat Man. T-shirts, hoodies.
A lot of stuff.
Enamel pins. We are busy, y'all, but we love it. It's a lot of fun. We also have merchandise. If Christmas is coming up. If you like to partake in consumerism and all that stuff, and you like the podcast, or you know someone that likes the podcast, and you want a shirt or a hoodie or a hat,
and the enamel pin is
not on there,
even more limited at this point. No, that's for Patreon.
Okay,
my bad.
You cannot buy it.
You can't buy that.
You can only buy it by the love of being a patron in our not tier.
Yes.
But we are talking about, and we're already thinking of designs for the 2024 enamel pin. Because remember, once January 2024 comes, our 2023 enamel pin is retired. We set it off in the sunset. We're going to, even if we have leftover pins, we're just going to dump them
in Florida.
In the ocean. Yeah, in
Florida, because that's where you retire.
That's where you retire. It's going to be swallowed by an alligator. But that's going to be our biggest fan alligator in the world. But thank you, everybody, so much for listening. We appreciate you. We hope you like this episode. We hope you like next week's episode. And we hope you had a great Thanksgiving if you celebrate. The holidays are here. Hope you have that jingle in your step. As always, I'm Tyler.
And I'm Charlie.
And catch us next week on Believing the Bizarre.
A podcast as bizarre as you are.